Pregame.com.
Welcome back to Pregame.tv. Ken Thomson, of course, with VR Vegas Runner. Now, VR came out, gave the New Orleans Saints as his NFC representative.
Who dat?
Yeah, of course. He is a Saints fan, but nonetheless, he didn't put that up there with his heart. And then on the AFC side of things, he liked the Houston Texans as a nice representative. They've been the trendy play over the years, but not so much this year. But it's his play. And he said he'll come back with a long shot. A team that we know is always around the hunt. Somehow, some way.
Always.
This team is there. Sometimes I think they get some preferential treatment, but they are good.
That's the word. That's the word.
To do it. And they fit the description of their city. Pittsburgh is a blue-collar city.
Grind it out.
Steelers are that type of team.
Grind it out.
Tomlin's coaching, Noel, go back, it doesn't much matter. And Cower, doesn't much matter. But you like this Pittsburgh Steeler team as a long shot.
I do. I love the fact I keep hearing this is a transition. This is a team going through a transition. Mm-hmm. Listen, they were releasing guys in 2011. They released in 2012. And they released leading up to this season. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, it reminds me of the New England Patriots, only that they did it first. And it's the system. And the reason you're getting so much value here is because of last year's 8-8 season, the fact they lost 3 starting defensive players from the number 1 defensive unit in the NFL, and Harrison, the big name, is also gone. But when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, here's a team that 2 seasons ago went 12-4, was favored by over a touchdown on the road in the playoffs, and they got T-bowed, if you remember. And that was it. They came back last year. Ben wasn't healthy. They went 8-8, and now all the talk is it's a transition. Listen, for 13 straight seasons, this team has never not gone to the playoffs in back-to-back years.
It's a good stat right there.
If they don't win the one year, they come back the next year and they get into the playoffs. It's just that kind of franchise. Since 1982, when this defense changed from a 3-4 to a 4-3 or a 4-3 to a 3-4 and made the center all around those middle and outside linebackers, they have been one of the best defenses in all of the NFL. They've been number 1 in fewest yards allowed 4 of the last 6 years. And one of those 2 times they weren't, they were second in 2010. And during all those seasons, they were losing player after player after player to free agency because we know the Steelers don't pay big money for names. They draft well like they did this season, and they don't even go after the free agency market. So defensively, Ken, I'm not worried one bit about this team at all. Let
me ask you on the offensive side of things. They lose Mike Wallace.
That's the key.
Their deep threat to stretch the field, although he'd been hobbled and hadn't played a full season. But then also you look, Baltimore, they lost a ton. It's been a 2-team race over the last, say, 12 years. Cincinnati became that 3rd team, and Andy Dalton brought them to respectability. Now you've got Cleveland trying to get in the mix. Pittsburgh, by losing Harrison inside the division, Cincinnati swooping him up. Baltimore losing Paul Kruger inside the division, Cleveland grabbing him. Those are 2 significant defensive players that I think go to weaker teams in the conference or in the division. What about this division as a whole, parity-wise? How big a step does Baltimore take back? No Ray Lewis, no Ed Reed. I mean, they're losing a ton. What about the Ravens? What about the Browns? What about the Bengals?
Here's the thing. You couple the Ravens losing what they've lost with the fact they won a Super Bowl last year, and you come in a little bit fat, a little bit, not as hungry, So I think they're going to take a step back, and I think the price in Vegas, which is a coin toss, whether they even make the playoffs. When have you seen that for a Super Bowl team being 50-50, whether they even make the playoffs? So they're going to take a step back. Cincinnati, everyone expects a regression. I don't. I think Cincinnati's going to hang around for a number of years. With that said, I think Pittsburgh's still better than them right now. Cleveland, I think they're going to take a step forward, but for them to reach the pinnacle, the top of the division, they're going to have to take a couple steps.
Yeah, they're not good.
So this year, I think it's coming down between the Steelers and Cincinnati. And personally, my money's going to go on Mike Tomlin in his 7th season, who has won 65% of the games he's coached. He has coached 104 games, and he's won 68 of those.
Best odds that you've seen, because I know earlier.
I've seen as high as plus 3,500 on Bookmaker.
35 to 1.
Yeah, and I know you could find plus 2,500, 25 to 1 all day.
Your Tuesday night partner, Fezzik, he likes the Steelers to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he does. And because when you look at this offense, here's what it is. They have a rebuilt offensive line. Everyone's saying, how are they going to protect Ben? Listen, they needed to rebuild the offensive line because Ben was getting sacked. He had to run for his life. That's why he wasn't healthy. You know that he's only played 16 games one time in his career? The year they won the Super Bowl. So he needed an offensive line. So this rebuilding, and you're rebuilding around Pouncey, who's a Pro Bowl center.
Right.
You got a DeCastro who's healthy. So for me, and two guys that were number 2 picks. So if anything, this is going to be a better offensive line than last year. The rebuilding's a positive. You lose Mike Wallace, who was a negative in the locker room, and during the season, the Pittsburgh, if you've read the bloggers and the guys that follow the team, they were saying there's turmoil. There's, they're just not a cohesive unit in the locker room. Wallace was a big part of that. Him being gone, I think, is a positive. And when you look, they're loaded at receiver. They got Emmanuel Sanders. They have Antonio Brown. They picked up Marcus Wheaton in the draft. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you got Conchery and even Plaxico on the bench. So they're fine at wide receiver.
Okay.
They're going to be fine.
Here you go. So you got VR. What he does, grabs an NFC, he grabbed the Saints. Grabs an AFC, he grabbed the Texans. Always throws a long shot. He does 3 of these, so we're going to make it official. This is VR's long shot.
Before the season started, the last 5 years, 3 of those times I gave the winner of the Super Bowl. This year, I love the Saints in the NFC. I bet them season win total over. I love Houston in the AFC. I bet them season win total over. And for my long shot, I love the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I also played the season wins over. I think the Steelers, who didn't make the playoffs last year, follow that 13-year trend of getting to the playoffs the year after they miss. And this is the kind of team, if they get in the playoffs, they're extremely dangerous. They have a head coach who won 65% of the games he's coached. You got a healthy Ben Roethlisberger. And more importantly, you finally have some competent backups to step in just in case he doesn't go 16 games, because he's only done that once. With that said, loaded at receiver. They got Bell from in the draft at running back to go into that stacked backfield. You got one of the best defenses every single year, because it's the system, not the players. And this has a team, has the makings of sneaking up on you when no one expects it, and I think they could be dangerous.
Good stuff, VR. We'll find out a lot. Week 2, Monday night game in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah, huge game. I'm just telling you, I really do think.
It's your long shot.
I think it's value. I think it's value. I would have took as high, honestly, if I found 15 to 1, 20 to 1, I'd be taking the Steelers. I think it's live. With New England expected to have a down year, with only Denver being the juggernaut, and they're having a little problems right now as well. I really think the Steelers have to feel going into the season that, they do have a shot to be competitive.
Sounds good to me. There you got it. Future play, long shot Super Bowl from Vegas Runner. You got Saints NFC, you got Houston AFC, his long shot, the Pittsburgh Steelers, right here on Vegas.tv. I'm Ken Thomson. He's Vegas Runner. We'll see you around real soon.